And we need the industry to ramp up production in a much higher tempo.
Kelly, we know Americans are buying a lot of guns, but finding ammunition for those guns can be tough.
They are obsessed with attacking law-abiding Americans' Second Amendment liberties.
It's going to be a long time until this thing normalizes, and you're going to have the stock that people are used to seeing from several years ago.
To communicate that this effort is not a temporary surge.
Number two, the pricing structure for what is available is off the wall. The prices are phenomenal.
Limited ammo supply. Expect the price of ammunition to rise substantially in 2024 as manufacturers dedicate materials to supply the war in Ukraine. The first hint appeared Monday when Vista Outdoor announced the sale of its outdoor sporting products division to Czechoslovak Group for $1.91 billion. Vista Outdoor brands include Federal, CCI, Spear, Heavy Metal, Bushnell, Butler Creek, Hobbs, and Remington, which owns a large ammunition plant Atlantic. A source in the retail slide of the Vista universe said that Czechoslovak Group wants the ammunition making capacity for the war in Ukraine. A Reuters article on Monday reinforced that opinion. It said Czech-based CSG has seen its revenue and profits rise since Russia's invasion of Ukraine as demand for heavy military equipment and ammunition to ship to Ukraine soared. In December 2022, Czechoslovak Group also acquired 70% of Fiocchi Munizioni, which in November 2022 announced plans to build a firearms primer manufacturing facility in Little Rock. It is one of only 6 primer manufacturing facilities in the United States and is also the world's only source of lead-free primers. When interruptions occur in the firearms industry supply chain, the retail ammunition and ammunition reloading markets get pinched the hardest. Shortages are most noticeable for 9mm Luger, 40 S&W, and 45 ACP, all common law enforcement and military cartridges. Accelerated production of ammo for military and law enforcement also causes shortages in the civilian market. This reduces availability of 380 REM and 22 LR, which manufacturers de-emphasize when producing high-demand military and police cartridges. Robin Sharpless, Executive Vice President of Reading Reloading Equipment, said that ammunition and reloading component shortages always accompany periods of political and social unrest. When shortages are most acute, scarcity of factory-loaded ammunition is equally acute. Scarcity triggers binge buying among some customers. Big box retailers sell an entire pallet of ammo to a few customers as soon as it leaves the truck. Moving inventory quickly is an objective in the retail paradigm. It doesn't matter if it moves through 3 customers or 30. Sharpless said that during the coronavirus pandemic, he noticed the same behavior in the reloading components market. If you were watching Facebook forums, you'd see posts that would say, "Cabela's got so many primers, and I got them all." Sharpless said, "I talked to one of those guys. He loads a box of ammunition a year. He shoots a couple of deer a year. So that's, what, half a box at most? But he's got 3,000 years worth of primers. It's an I've got them and you don't thing." Those behaviors do hurt the market. David Stone, president of Dong Sporting and Reloading Goods in Tulsa, noticed the same thing in the ammunition market. During the pandemic in 2020, there was no rimfire and no 9mm, Stone said. One guy told me he had a 50-gallon drum full of 22 rimfire shells. Never in your entire lifetime are you going to shoot all those. There are thousands of hoarders like that. Some retailers, like Fort Thompson Sporting Goods in Sherwood, flatten the supply and demand curve locally to a small extent by limiting the amount of ammo and components that individuals can buy at one time. Rationing ammo is important during buying spree periods because it engenders trust, Stone said. Nothing frustrates a customer more than an unavailable product. "I'm here every day and I watch my inventory level," Stone said. Big chains have got corporate people that watch stuff. They'll ship 100 boxes to a store. One person can walk in off the streets and buy it all. I don't do that. Even when ammo is available, reloading supplies often remain scarce for a long time. An associate of Fort Thompson Sporting Goods said it's because ammo manufacturers consume the bulk of powder, primers, brass and bullets. A lot of primers are staying with the manufacturers because they're producing cartridges, the associate said. If they can't get primers, they can't produce cartridges either. Vista owns CCI and Federal, and Vista owns Remington. Hodgdon owns most of the powder brands, so they've all got the same issue. Powder is going to the manufacturers to produce the bullets. It's all a chain deal. Reloaders get the leftovers. Sometimes, Stone said, it pays to play a hunch. I'm kind of a gambler, Stone said. When I saw a primer shortage coming, I gave somebody I've never done business with $150,000 up front for primers. When those came in, I gave them another $150,000. That's a gamble that paid off. Even when demand stabilizes, non-endemic factors like a trucker strike or dock worker strike can cause a spike in demand and a dip in supply, Stone said. Let's say there's a trucker strike. There's no freight coming in. That kind of kills everybody's plan, Stone said. The solution, Stone said, is equivalent to retailer hoarding. He said he buys enough to get him through the lean times. When the supply reflows, he overstocks again. The last big shortage was 2013, Stone said. I hated it when I ran out, so I overbought. I've had primers since 2013. I bought too many then, and I'm glad I did. It's already paid for. With the major supplier intending to devote production for the foreseeable future to a war that has no foreseeable end, the supply of hunting ammo could be tight for years.
Russia seems to be bypassing Western sanctions and ramping up the production of the Dagger hypersonic missiles.
And we need the industry to ramp up production in a much higher tempo.
Finding ammunition to keep the weapons it already has firing.
To communicate that this effort is not a temporary surge.
Well, the bottom line is we are facing an ammunition shortage, Marky, as you indicated.
Stocking up now while supplies and prices are favorable might help see hunters through some upcoming lean times. Ammo ban. There is a continuous onslaught of attacks in regard to the Second Amendment and our right to keep and bear arms. There is no shortage of arm laws that are different throughout the country, between counties, and within cities in all 50 states. If they had it their way, they'd ban arms everywhere of all types. The Second Amendment remains clear. However, that the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. These anti-arm politicians don't have an uphill battle to fight. They've got a cliff in front of them, and there is no way around it. That doesn't mean they won't try other ways to restrict our rights as much as they possibly can. If they fail with arms, they will try other avenues of disarmament. Let's discuss. Mag manufacturer bans. This is kind of a no-brainer because many states like California, Colorado, New York, and others have already made a show of banning mags of a certain capacity for firearms. But there is nothing that says that they can't ban their manufacture and sale outright. Colorado is a great example because the mag and part manufacturer Magpul used to be located there. But when the legislation came, they moved states. Ammunition restrictions. There is zero requirement for the government to allow for the purchase of ammunition. Fun fact, a lot of 9mm, 5.56, 7.62 by 51, and other NATO rounds are made using government ammunition manufacturing plants, and it rotates between manufacturers. Winchester, for example, and they are allowed to sell the overage on the production to civilians. So, if the military needs X amount of rounds, the manufacturer gets to sell anything above that to recoup the costs of running the plants. Not too long ago, it was attempted to prevent this from happening, specifically with 5.56mm ammo. But Winchester fought back and claimed breach of contract. That said, there is nothing stating anywhere that it can be a choke point for the anti-2A crowds. One way to mitigate this is to look into making your own. Right now, components for reloading are still available, but nowhere near as cheap as they once were.
Yes, he has seen ammo shortages before, but never, he says, like this. Kelly, we know Americans are buying a lot of guns, but finding ammunition for those guns can be tough.
The ammunition market is dried up. There's virtually no ammunition available.
Comes as the White House is walking back President Biden's claim that the U.S. is running low on ammunition.
Number two, the pricing structure for what is available is off the wall. The prices are phenomenal.
It's a great hobby and a great way to fine-tune your firearms ammunition to the weapon to bring more accuracy and potentially better terminal ballistics of your rounds. Assault weapons ban. While this isn't technically a linchpin, it is something that we think needs to be talked about. In recent years, there has been a lot about creating another assault weapons ban. While statistically the ban did nothing according to the CDC and a ton of other studies, it is a feel-good piece of legislation that, similarly to the stabilizing brace ban, would make millions of felons overnight. Additionally, it is widely believed that the definition of an assault weapon would drastically change. Hence, it would likely affect everything from your standard Glock 19 through a 50 BMG to your kid's Ruger 10/22 and its scary 25-round mag.
And if we can't ban assault weapons, then we should raise the age to purchase them from 18 to 21.
An assault weapon's only purpose is to kill people efficiently.
We need to ban assault weapons and high-capacity magazines.
They say that when we argue for removing weapons of war from the streets of America, we're actually telling them to repeal the Second Amendment.
They are obsessed with attacking law-abiding Americans' Second Amendment liberties.
Armor ban. One mitigation to getting hurt seriously is body armor. While AR-500 armor and other steel armor is cheap and effective against most threats you are likely to face, if you have the spare money, you could spend the extra for ceramic plates like the military uses and can defeat 30-06 armor-piercing rounds. What's better is, if you get the steel plates and carrier, you can use it for fitness to add some rigor to your run or weight workout. Bottom line, we don't think that the anti-gunners will have a lot of success in getting all arms banned but certain arms. Their subcomponents, mags, or ammunition could be easy targets for legislation. Illinois Handgun Ammunition Serialization Law. The Criminal Code of 2012 has been amended to require all handgun ammunition manufactured, imported into the state for sale or personal use, kept for sale, offered or exposed for sale, sold, given, lent, or possessed to be serialized. Starting January 1st, 2024, anyone who manufactures, caused to be manufactured, imports into the state for sale or personal use, keeps for sale, offers or exposes for sale, or gives or lends unsterilized handgun ammunition is guilty of a Class A misdemeanor. The term manufacturer refers to any person that manufactures handgun ammunition within the state or manufactures it with the intent to distribute it for purposes of sale, loan, or transfer. A public place includes areas open to the public, including streets, sidewalks, bridges, alleys, plazas, parks, driveways, front yards, parking lots, motor vehicles, and buildings open to the general public. These rules may include the assessment and collection of end-user fees in an amount not to exceed 5 cents per round of handgun ammunition or per bullet, the implementation and furtherance of a retail handgun ammunition vendor's registry, and the assessment and collection of fees associated with the registration program in an amount not to exceed $50 per year per retail location, adjusted annually for inflation based upon the Consumer Price Index for the North Central region as published by the United States Department of Labor, Bureau of Labor Statistics for the immediately preceding calendar year. Unlawful manufacture, sale, or transfer of non-serialized handgun ammunition are punishable under Section 24-1.12. Violations of this subsection A are a Class A misdemeanor. Violations of this subsection B are Class C misdemeanors. Violations of this subsection C are Class C misdemeanors. In summary, the Illinois State Police is responsible for enforcing the handgun serialization program and other provisions of this code. They may adopt rules to assess and collect end-user fees, implement and permit the registration of retail handgun ammunition vendors, and enforce penalties for unlawful possession and manufacture of non-serialized ammunition. The Illinois State Police has implemented the new law aimed at preventing the unlawful retail sale of handgun ammunition. Starting January 1st, 2024, individuals who knowingly engage in the retail sale of handgun ammunition and sell, lease, or transfer serialized handgun ammunition without being a registered vendor are considered illegal. This violation is a Class A misdemeanor. Vendors, agents, or employees of the vendor who sell or otherwise transfers ownership of any serialized handgun ammunition must record the following information in a format prescribed by the Illinois State Police: the date of the transaction, the name of the transferee, their driver's license number or other government-issued identification card number, the date of birth of the transferee, the unique identifier of all serialized handgun ammunition or bullets transferred, and all other information prescribed by the Illinois State Police. Upon delivery of the handgun ammunition to the transferee, the vendor must report the information required in subsection D to the Illinois State Police. A copy of the records required by this section shall be maintained on the vendor's premises for a period of not less than 3 years from the date of the recorded transfer. The Illinois State Police has enacted a new law requiring manufacturers to register with the Illinois State Police and maintain records of their premises for a period of 7 years concerning all sales, loans, and transfers of handgun ammunition. This is in place since January 1st, 2024, and is a Class A misdemeanor. Manufacturers must also comply with all other rules concerning handgun ammunition manufacture and sale adopted by the Illinois State Police. Unlawful commercial manufacture of serialized handgun ammunition is defined as engaging in the commercial manufacture of serialized handgun ammunition and selling, lending, or transferring it without being a registered manufacturer. Manufacturers who fail to comply with this section are liable for a civil fine of not more than $1,000 for a first violation, $5,000 for a second violation, and a $10,000 for a third and subsequent violation. The Illinois State Police may inspect handgun ammunition manufacturers to ensure compliance with this section. However, certain exemptions apply to certain individuals, such as peace officers, prison guards, members of the armed services or reserve forces, special agents employed by railroads or public utilities, guards of armored car companies, and persons licensed as private security contractors, private detectives, or private alarm contractors. In summary, the Illinois State Police has implemented new regulations to address the illegal production and sale of serialized handgun ammunition. Manufacturers must register with the Illinois State Police, maintain records on their premises, and comply with other rules. Exemptions and limitations. The private detective, private alarm, private security, fingerprint vendor, and locksmith act of 2004 allows individuals to be exempt from firearm control charges while engaged in their duties or commuting between their homes and places of employment. Eligible individuals must complete 20 hours of training for a private security contractor, private detective, or private alarm contractor, or an employee of a licensed private security agency, and 28 hours of required firearm training. They must also be issued firearm control card by the Department of Financial and Professional Regulation. The exemption applies to individuals regularly employed in a commercial or industrial operation as a security guard for the protection of employees and private property related to such operation, while actually engaged in their duty or traveling between sites or properties belonging to the employer. The text outlines the requirements for firearm control cards issued by the Department of Financial and Professional Regulation, which must be carried by security guards when they are in possession of a concealed weapon. Subsections 24-1A4 and 24-1A10 do not apply to persons carrying concealed pistols, revolvers, or handguns, and those with a valid license under the Firearm Concealed Carry Act at the time of the offense. They do not apply to qualified current or retired law enforcement officers, current or retired deputy, county correctional officers, or correctional officers of the Department of Corrections qualified under the laws of the state or under the Federal Law Enforcement Officers Safety Act. The text also excludes members of clubs or organizations organized for practicing shootings at targets on established target ranges, duly authorized military or civil organizations while parading, hunters, trappers, or fishermen engaged in lawful hunting, trapping or fishing, transportation of broken-down weapons, and carrying or possessing any firearm on land or in the illegal dwelling of another person as an invitee. The text outlines the exemptions and limitations of certain provisions related to firearms and ammunition. It states that subsection 24-1A7 does not apply to peace officers, wardens, superintendents, keepers of prison, members of the armed services or reserve forces of the United States, or the Illinois National Guard while in their official duties. It also states that persons licensed under federal law to manufacture any weapon from which 8 or more shots of bullets can be discharged by a single function of the firing device or ammunition for such weapons are only allowed with respect to activities within the lawful scope of their business. The exemption does not authorize the general private possession of any weapon from which 8 or more shots or bullets can be discharged by a single function of the firing device, but only such possession and activities as are within the lawful scope of a licensed manufacturing business described in this paragraph. The exemption also applies to any authorized agent of any such contractor or subcontractor operating within the scope of their employment, where such activities involving such weapons or ammunition are necessary and incident to fulfilling the terms of such contract. The text also states that subsection 24-1A1 does not apply to the purchase or carrying of a blackjack or slungshot by a peace officer. It also states that subsections 24-1A4 and subsections 24-1A10 and sections 24-1.6 do not apply to members of any club or organizations organized for the purpose of practicing shooting at targets upon established target ranges while using their firearms on those target ranges. HB 3891-23-LRB 103-25815 RLC 52166B states that certain provisions do not apply to persons licensed under federal law to manufacture devices or attachments designed, used, or intended for use in silencing the report of any firearms, or ammunition. These exemptions only apply to activities within the lawful scope of a licensed manufacturing business, such as the manufacture, transportation, or testing of those devices, firearms, or ammunition. The provisions do not apply to parole agents or parole supervisors who meet the qualifications and conditions prescribed in Section 3-14-1.5 of the Unified Code of Corrections. Peace officers serving on tactical response teams or special operations teams cannot personally own or apply for ownership of a device or attachment designed, used, or intended for use in silencing the report of any firearm. These devices must be owned and maintained by lawfully recognized units of government whose duties include the investigation of criminal acts. Subsections 24-1.12a and 24-1.12b do not apply to possession of non-serialized handgun ammunition by forensics laboratories, state or local government agencies charged with law enforcement, Illinois State Police, or authorized agents or employees of the agency. Possession of non-serialized handgun ammunition by an executor or administrator of an estate is allowed if all conditions are met, such as being lawfully possessed, including within the estate, and disposed of in a manner consistent with this article. The provisions also apply to the possession of non-serialized handgun ammunition by peace officers from other states, members of the armed service or reserve forces, museums or collectors, and transportation of non-serialized handgun ammunition. Urgent warning. The anti-Second Amendment movement is a disturbing trend in New Jersey and Illinois, where people must show their ID to purchase ammo. This information is shared with the ATF, which allows them to know what kind of arms you have. This is because states are making people register certain weapons to determine if they are a felon or not, urging people to stop buying ammo in these states and refuse to register it with the federal government. Most people don't stay in a state and never leave that state, so they often buy ammo when traveling. They should use these opportunities to purchase ammo while traveling, as most people do not stay in a state and never leave. Non-compliance is not enough. One must also focus on voting and who they are voting for. It's not about one party being better at the Second Amendment than the other. People should consider their voting history and vote on Second Amendment issues. If buying ammo, it's best to register your arm and end this issue by encouraging people to focus on their voting history and not participate in the anti-Second Amendment movement. suggesting that people should register their arms instead and stop buying ammo in states like New Jersey and Illinois.
The Second Amendment to the United States Constitution, Mr. President, as you well know,
it's going to be a long time until this thing normalizes and you're going to have the stock that people are used to seeing from several years ago.
Your right to own a gun can also be restricted.
And the White House later clarified the president's statement to News Nation, saying that the country's leftover ammo is dwindling.
That's all for this video, folks. See you next time.